Back to class, everyone. Before we really get rolling, I wanted to kind of go around and get your impression of the encouragement project that we did. And then, so like, what was your impression of doing it? What did you think about grading yourself? And have you heard anything back? And if you heard anything back, like what did you hear back? So I'll start with Noah. He's in the top right corner of my screen. So Noah, what was your impression of it? How'd you like grading yourself? And then have you heard anything back?
I have not heard anything back from him. Hopefully we do, but so far, I had Carlos, by the way.
Okay.
But I haven't heard anything back from him so far. Overall, I enjoyed the project. Wasn't too bad at all. But I do not I'm not a big fan of having to grade myself. Just because, I don't know. I feel like it's harder to assess ourselves, and I feel like narcissistic giving myself a good grade, but I know I don't know. It just feels weird.
Yeah. All right. Caleb, what do you think about it?
I was in the same boat as Noah, like as far as the grading portion, because like I really enjoyed the project. I really enjoyed sending the email out, connecting with these people. I had Christian Automotive Brothers, which we took a tour of their shop last year. And then I had one that I wasn't familiar with, but I've definitely had their pizza before. There's a pizza shop here in Ankeny, but with the Christian Automotive Brothers, it was really, really cool. Just to be able to ask him, like, you know, how's this affecting your family? Here's how it's affecting my family. How is this affecting your business? Here's how it's affecting me and my job and where I work. And just felt like it was a really cool opportunity as a brother in Christ to reach out and say, hey, you know, somebody cares. We're here for you. Can we help? I thought it was really cool. But as far as the grading, it made me super uncomfortable because it's just like, I know I did a good job, but I can't give myself 100. So like a 90 will be, you know, a 90 will be good. But yeah, I really, really struggled with the grading portion as well.
All right. Emmy.
I really liked this project. I thought it was really cool just to be able to reach out to people, even if we may not have met them yet before, or we might not even know their business existed. I think it was really cool just to be able to reach out to them and encourage them during this time, because everyone needs encouragement. I had Joel Smith from Papa Murphy's, and then Mandy Pitig, is that how you spell your name? From I believe it was like Ankeny Family Vision Center.
Yeah. She's one of the co-owners of that Vision Center over on North Ankeny Boulevard.
So I had them, and I thought it was really cool just to be able to reach out to them. And even if I didn't, because we had Joel Smith in one of our classes last semester, so I was able to make that connection. But I didn't really know who Mandy was and everything like that. Neither of them have replied yet, so I haven't gotten any feedback yet. But I just thought it was a really good experience just to be able to reach out to people in the community. Grading myself, I don't like doing stuff like that, because just like Noah and Caleb said, that it feels very narcissistic just giving yourself a good grade, but you also don't want to like give yourself a bad grade at the same time because you want to do well on the assignment. So it was hard to do that, but I think it's just being able to give yourself feedback on yourself, I guess, in a way that is presenting you as someone who's just confident rather than someone who's narcissistic. So it was hard to do, but it was a good experience, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Krista.
I enjoyed this. It was good to reach out to people and encourage them, and it also encouraged me too. I had Dr. Love and Lori Cope, and actually both of them have emailed me back. So that was cool. Dr. Love just talked about how this whole thing is affecting businesses and how we as students can learn from mistakes that people are making or learn from what people are doing well. And then Lori just shared some other pull requests with me. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I also didn't like grading myself, but I think it forced me to like check my motives more, because it can be easy to just do homework to get a good grade, even if you're not doing your best work. But this, you actually have to be doing it with the right heart attitude.
Yeah, good. Max.
I had Todd. I forget how you said
PTIG. I think it looks like PyTig, but I think they pronounce it PTIG.
Okay. I had Todd PTIG, which again, we haven't met them before. I also had Michael Blackstone. I have gotten an email response from Michael Blackstone, but I haven't gotten one from Todd yet. As Emmy said, it was interesting getting to email somebody that we haven't interacted with yet. So just still trying to be an encouragement, even though I don't know them. That was a bit of a challenge, but I think it was a good experience. I enjoyed doing it. I liked being able to converse and encourage people, and kind of echoing what a lot of people have said. It was a challenge to grade myself, but like what Krista said, I think it was helpful to check my motives as I was doing it. It's easier to just do it for the assignment, but I think having the grading there, helps me to make sure that I'm doing a good job, but also, it can also be a distraction as to why I'm doing it. So, especially when I'm grading myself, kind of making me question, how well did I do? Did I meet all the guidelines? Did I do it for the right reason? So I think there's good and bad in grading yourself.
Yeah, great. All right, thanks, Max. Katie.
I had Jeremy Leffering from the Foam Corps, and then I had Jeannie Thomas from the Alpha Women's Center. And I did actually hear back from both of them in the same day, which I was really surprised about. But I liked this assignment because it was just nice being able to kind of share how this is all affecting me, and then hear back from them also, like how it's affecting their businesses and stuff, and what they're struggling with and what they're creatively doing to try to keep in business and keep all their employees on. Like Ms. Thomas was saying, they're trying to like make the transition from being that like connection point for the mothers instead to just kind of being a drive-through to give out supplies. And she's like, that's not what we want to do, but it's what we have to do in order to keep serving the community. And yeah, it's just nice to be able to hear some specific prayer requests from them that we can be praying for. For the grading part, I honestly didn't really struggle with that much, since I knew I had to grade myself beforehand. I knew that I should be giving like 100% if I want to get that 100%. So it was nice to be able to know that, so then I could, like they've said before, check my motives before doing it and then make sure I hit all the guidelines. So knowing that beforehand, I didn't really think it was super hard to grade myself. But yeah.
All right. Thanks. Christy.
I had Ximena, Carlos's wife from Bluebeam, and I did hear back from her, and it was just interesting to like be able to talk to her about like how much like I was sharing with her how much it's impacted all of us as students to be able to have a place like to come and stuff, and it was just really encouraging to hear how much like they've appreciated it and how much it's helped them, because I kind of thought if it is something nice that they were doing for us, but just how much like they really like will miss doing it, and just really appreciate the relationships and stuff too. And I didn't like the grading myself part either. Like I just don't like grading myself, because kind of like what Noah said, I feel like it's hard to give yourself like an 100, but then like you don't want to give yourself a bad grade. But so yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, thank you. Jared Graham.
Yeah, I feel like mine went pretty well. I was working with the owner of the Leaning Tower Pizza, Kevin Harrington, and when I contacted him, it was either later that day or the next day that I got the email back from him, and that went pretty well, I think. He sent me a pretty decent sized email, so that kind of, and he actually got into some of the detail on how his things were going, which kind of was a kind of a good thing to hear from him personally, because sometimes, you know, when some people will give you a response and it's like a little bit of nothing, and that you kind of just get the idea that they really just don't really want to talk to you right now. So, but anyway, I got kind of the opposite of that. So I really enjoyed talking with him on that. And then he was telling me how some of the positives, actually, how his business was turning out to be during the difficult time. And so I think, and so I actually sent another email back early this morning. So anyway, yeah, to be honest, actually, I did not realize I was grading myself. I just got a grade, and then I forgot about that whole part of it. So
well, on yours, Jared, because you sent me you were the only one that actually sent me a draft of what you were going to send out, and you kind of were working through how to phrase it and trying to get some advice. And so, yeah, so I based your grade on that, by the way. So good job on that. So that's why you got that. So,
okay.
But I would be curious.
I honestly did not realize I was actually grading myself. I thought I just got a grade. So
it's okay. You just dreamed about it and poof, your grade just appeared. So,
yeah.
All right, Joe, how did yours go? What do you think?
Mine went pretty well. I had Drew from Embrace Life Chiropractic, and I haven't gotten an email back from him, but I thought it was really cool to do, and I thought it was a really good testimony to the community, and like they're going to remember that Faith did this for a while, and I think it's just a good testimony for Christ and for Faith too. As far as grading, I know I put 100% in, so I didn't really have a problem giving myself 100 for it. I mean, it's kind of hard, but if you just, like, I know I tried my best, so I was confident in putting 100 for me. So, I don't know.
All right. Okay. Alyssa.
I had Mark Weatherly and Jennifer Walter, and I really enjoyed emailing them and reaching out to them. They were actually two of the people that spoke in our class last semester that I remembered the most. So I was really happy I got to reach out to them and just hopefully encourage them. And I really liked the idea of this project. I haven't heard anything back from Mark Weatherly yet, but Jennifer Walter has been emailing me back and forth actually for the past couple days, so that's been encouraging, and just to kind of hear more of where she's at and with like her family and with how she's been working and everything, that's been really encouraging. So
Excellent. Okay, thank you. All right, so let me talk about this just a little bit. First off, don't feel bad if you haven't heard back. You might not hear back. The goal was not necessarily, it's not like one of those pen pal relationships where you have to get something back or the project's not complete. You sent that out with goodwill, knowing that the Lord can use it however the Lord wants to use it. Some people are not email people, so you engage them with email, but they might not be the type of person that responds to emails. We have people here on this campus that are in high levels of leadership that never respond to emails. They read them and it makes an impact on them, but they're just not the type of person that does a lot of correspondence. So don't feel bad if you don't hear back. You can feel good that you did it. Secondly, when it comes to grading yourself, I believe people that, let's say you started your own business, you started your own small business. you would constantly be in the process of grading yourself, right? Because you would want to always be checking yourself to see, am I measuring up to a standard that I've set for myself? And there are two kinds of measurements. You might be familiar with this. They might cover this like in economics classes. There's quantitative and qualitative measurements. So are you guys familiar with those two terms, quantitative and qualitative? It makes sense, right, when you think about it. So quantitative measures things with numbers. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? On a scale of 1 to 100, what grade would you give yourself? That's a quantitative measurement. It's a percentage, it's a number. And it's a time, you know, like, hey, how fast did you run the mile? How fast does this car go? These are all quantitative measurements. How heavy is something? So we do scientifically, we can measure things with numbers, and it's black and white, and it is very representative, where you can say, okay, I did this, and in exchange, I got this. You know, I sold this car for $1,500. Therefore, you know, I measure my success based on that. Did I make enough money? It's harder to measure things from a qualitative point of view. What qualities are these? You know, does it make you feel good? Did it motivate? Did it encourage? Well, it's kind of hard to measure encouragement. You know, you can't take out a tool out of the toolbox and measure how much encouragement did this give. And so I think some of the self-grading might be related to, it's kind of hard to put a number on something that's actually qualitative, right? So, but that's what teachers have to do all the time. So if I would have graded you, I would have had to grade it based on how I feel about it, not so much, you know, can I measure it with some kind of tool? So that's one thing. Number two, I think when measuring yourself, for example, in a situation like this, you do humbly have to balance out, did I really honestly achieve what was being asked? So that's not a bad thing. Leaving room for, hey, you know, I don't think I did. I was a little distracted when I was doing it, or whatever. But you don't have to feel bad if you really believe that you gave 100% and that your 100% equals 100% of what was being asked for. Then giving yourself 100% fits. But some of you, you know, you like left a little room for, hey, you know, nobody's perfect. I'm sure I missed something. I could always do better, things like that. Nothing wrong with that. But, you know, if you've earned 100%, you can always give yourself 100%. That's not being proud. That's not being overly confident. That's just, what you have to do sometimes is step outside of yourself and say, if I was looking at my work over my shoulder, if you put yourself in my shoes as the teacher, looking at your effort and your work, what grade do you think the teacher would give? That's a good way to kind of take yourself out of the equation, right? So now there's no conflict of interest. I put you intentionally in a situation where you felt a little bit of that conflict of interest tension, because of course you want the good grade, but you're judging yourself. And some of you are more critical self-judge than I am of you. So you judge yourself more harshly for the way you did it, because there's an element that I can't judge, which is what was inside of you when you were doing it. So because of the overwhelming response of this self-grading, I'm sure we'll do it again, because it's awfully fun for me to see you guys have to go through that, because it is a reality. When I was in the military, I had a couple lazy supervisors when I was in the Air National Guard, and they had me write my own promotion review. So they said, we want you to write up your own promotion review. And if it's accepted, you'll get promoted. And if it's not, you won't get promoted. Well, what a odd way to get promoted is, instead of your boss saying, hey, I see these qualities in you, I think you should be moved forward, the boss says, hey, I'm too lazy to write up your promotion report. If you write a good one, I'll promote you. So obviously that's a broken system, because you could just have people that are really good writers or that have no conscience and they get promoted. And then other people, just because they're not really good at writing or they're a little more critical of themselves, don't get promoted, but they deserve it. So anyway, I will have you grade yourself on other things in the future. I'm really excited to hear the feedback that you've gotten. You notice that I didn't ask you for a copy. You didn't have to send me a copy or anything. I've only seen maybe one or two. And that's because the purpose of the project was not to impress the teacher with, you know, how eloquent you were. The purpose of the project was to connect with someone that might really need some encouragement. Some of you, the people you connected with, have donated $150,000 to this program. So I don't know. I don't know if I told whoever it was in that case, but you know, some of you, these people are the ones who are on my kitchen cabinet, and they are the ones giving advice for the future of the program. A few of these people, their businesses are in big trouble right now. So with the government stimulus and economic bailouts, they might be okay, but some of them are in big, big trouble. A few of them, like what Jared discovered. So one of the industries that's way up is pizza, because carry out and delivery, they're up 15%, Kevin Harrington said. Also, many of the ones you contacted are professing Christians. Like, it's actually part of their story. If they spoke in class, they talked about that. But there are a few that are not professing Christians. Maybe they are, and it's just not something we're aware of. But a few of you reached out to people that might not be Christians or might not be strong Christians. And so just a word of encouragement that didn't come across as like preachy, and it didn't come across as like, you know, this was an assignment and I'm sending out a form letter. So that personal connection is great. And then finally, we did this with pure motives. We did it to be an encouragement. We didn't do it to get anything from anyone. We didn't do it to get them to think we're great as a college or a program. We really just wanted to be encouragement because we believe people need encouragement. So you can feel good about that. Like there's nothing else to this. And I think it was valuable. We're trying to turn something that is really negative, you know, being separated all over the country and the virus and business being down and stuff, turning it into some kind of positive. And I think this would be one of those legacies that we could see will have a long-term impact, because you just never know. That's why Proverbs says that about a word fitly spoken. It's like put in the right time, the right place, the right word can make a big difference. So excellent. Any final comments on that before we move on? All right. Well, I'd like to go to this PowerPoint and kind of keep talking through. And I do apologize for having to kind of click through PowerPoints. I really don't like doing it that way, but that's what we're going to do, because there's really no other way to get through this. And it does. We'll get to some discussion here in a second, and I'll break you into groups. But can everyone see that? Thumbs up. You can see it. Okay. You can read it fine. Okay. So as I was saying, servant leadership is not uniquely a Christian thing, although Christians' reason for servant leadership is unique. Okay. So humanists believe in servant leadership. At least some of them do. Humanists do not practice witchcraft. Humanists are not terrible people that go around and kill people and stuff necessarily. Humanists believe that, hey, apart from God, with no God, they can improve the human condition by being better humans. I mean, that's what they do. And so being a servant leader appeals to some humanists because, hey, you're a better neighbor, you're a better citizen. When I was studying servant leadership for my master's degree, I found out that the father of the modern servant leadership movement was not necessarily a Christian, at least not what we would perceive as like a strong Christian. He was a former Quaker. His name's Greenleaf. He's got a website dedicated to him and stuff, but he coined the term servant leadership for modern time. Now, we go back to the New Testament and say, well, Jesus said you got to be the servant if you want to be great. So we kind of beat him to it. But the modern servant leadership movement, this is a secular textbook that we're reading, and they value servant leadership. Patrick Lencioni, the author of a lot of these really good leadership books, he's Mormon. he doesn't even like the term servant leadership because he believes every leader should be a servant leader. He doesn't believe there's any other kind. So let me just kind of go through here. Key competencies of servant leaders: empowerment. Someone jump in here. Tell me, what does empowerment mean? What is empowerment? Noah, what is empowerment?
I'd say it's kind of like encouragement, or like you're like enabling somebody to do something.
Yeah, you very good. Enabling is a great word because you're actually giving them the ability to do something that they wouldn't have done if you hadn't given them that opportunity. So you're empowering them. You're giving them power. Okay. So a servant leader gives power or influence to other people. They don't just hog it all to themselves. Stewardship. What's stewardship? Joe, what's stewardship?
It's, well, you're given responsibility and you're, I guess, being responsible with it. You're just making the most of it, or trying to expand it, I guess. Or, I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, yeah, you're trying to expand or make the most of something that's been entrusted to you. You view it as opposed to ownership. You're a steward. You've been given something that really belongs to someone else, and you're trying to make it better. And then the other two are kind of self-explanatory. Building relationships. A servant leader has to be good with relationships, and they also have to have a compelling vision. So with servant leadership, this is usually a key competency, is that they understand how to motivate people with a compelling vision. We'll skip this one. So there's an actual organization, the Great Place to Work Institute. And so when you think about great places to work, these are the dimensions that they've identified as great places to work: credibility, respect, fairness, pride, and camaraderie. And you probably would work somewhere that had at least 3 of these things. And you'd probably enjoy working somewhere that had 4 of these things. But if you work somewhere that has all 5 of these things, you're going to really, really like working there, even if the job's not that great. You notice it doesn't say anything about the job itself. These are the elements that relate to the workplace. And specifically in this discussion, if a workplace is an ethical place to work, and if the leaders are ethical, it all adds to this effect of it being a great place to work. So here's the discussion, and I'm going to break into 2 groups here. So considering that great place to work, I'll put it back there. How might the relevance or expression of these dimensions change depending on how big an organization is, the pace of change in the organization environment? Does it change a lot, or is it stable? And then the mission of the organization and the ownership of the organization. So I'm going to switch back to that table real quick. So, and you don't have to specifically remember all these, but the credibility, the respect, the fairness, the pride, and the camaraderie in an organization, how are those affected by the size of an organization, the pace of environment, and the mission and the ownership? So I want to break you into groups. I want you to talk about how do different organizations get affected by these factors here. And what I'll try and do is keep this pulled up on the side here. So let me see if I can pop it off to the side for you here real quick. Stand by. 2 groups. Create rooms automatically. All right, I'll send it to the chat area so you can see the list there, so you can have a short discussion on this.
But I know, like, in bigger
It went to the chat.
aspects, that it's harder for people to relate to each other just because there's so many people that they like kind of lose track and everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think also, Katie, like what you were saying with like a smaller business, I think on the flip end of that, I think it depends on the leadership in that business, because if you have bad leadership and like an owner who doesn't really care about his employees or the customers and he's just there to make a profit, then you're not going to necessarily have that credibility. And so it also really just depends on the leadership as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. Is like, I think it can happen in bigger businesses, but I think it has to be really intentional by the leadership to make sure they implement those too.
Yeah, I think sometimes it can be good with smaller businesses, but with some smaller businesses, I guess I've seen a little bit of negativity in it, because sometimes if they don't see, like with some of the people who are, I guess, less engaged in or less familiar with the people on the upper ends of the business, sometimes they do get less of a less feedback, I guess, from some of the people who are on the upper end of it. I guess I kind of feel like sometimes that happens with businesses that are smaller. They just, I guess, have a less feeling of an obligation to fit at all the larger business requirements, I guess, if you know what I mean.
Back. Sorry about the chat. I'm not quite sure why you guys don't get the chat right away. I don't know if it's when I go to breakout rooms, if I have to chat after you've gone to the room. So I'll try and get better at that. Sorry about that. It's kind of the 2020 version of the professor fiddling with his microphone for 10 minutes in front of the whole class. So yeah, sorry about that. Okay, let's get back to the discussion here real quick, or the lecture portion of this, and then I have a little more discussion coming up. Let's see. All right, so you guys talked about that a little bit. Let's keep going. So this is kind of the outline of the next section here. And if you've done your pre-test or post-test for this chapter, these all come up. The reason this chapter I left more questions in those tests is because they're a lot more common sense, and they're things that you're actually going to see over and over and over again, except for maybe the clawback disincentives, which I'll talk about very briefly. But so first, holistic organizational goals. An organization's success depends on twin goals: productivity and profitability, right? So it cannot just only be about profit, because you will use people up and burn them out. But it cannot only be about productivity, because productivity does not always equal profit. You know, you might get a lot done, but if you're not doing the right thing, it might not help the organization meet its financial goals and financial needs. So the balanced scorecard, this is just a when you work, especially if you work in a business office of a for-profit company, okay, they sometimes will use what they call a balanced scorecard. Gives employees a clear visual of strategic measures, uses easy to understand metrics, aligns project objectives with financial goals. Just something I want you to at least have in the back of your brain. Some business people use that terminology. Triple bottom line, this is something that is relatively new with the era that you guys are entering the workforce. This is more of a issue than maybe a generation prior. But people, planet, profit, these are three things that companies are trying to make sure, if they want to be the best, they're trying to think of, okay, the people side of things, but they're also trying not to, you know, destroy the planet in the process. And then they do want profit. Before nowadays, it might have been more common to have, you know, basically only the people and profit, and no one cared about the planet. But we know that that's not good. We need to make sure we take good care of what God's given us in the planet. Okay, discussion. I'm not going to have you go to this, so I'm going to skip this one here because we already had plenty of discussion and we only have 5 minutes left. So stretch goals. Okay, this is one of those things that I want you guys to remember, because this is something that you can use the rest of your life. Leaders should try to challenge the people that are subordinate to them to stretch themselves so that they can achieve peak efficiency. So this happens in exercise. So let's say that you join the track team. Your coach is not going to tell you to just walk 10 laps to get ready for the 5K. The coach is going to try and make you run faster than you've run and push you a little bit, not to injury, but at least to stretch yourself, because peak efficiency would be like if you had a dial, on the dashboard of a vehicle. Peak efficiency is like at the top of the dial. A little past peak efficiency, you're getting into the red zone a little bit, but a little bit to the other side, you're not at the highest performance, right? So you want to kind of hit as close to that 100%. Sometimes getting that little extra is okay. You just can't always be at that, because you will burn out the engine, so to speak. So stretch goals are really good because they do push people, but there is a danger. In order to accomplish a stretch goal, sometimes people cut corners, which can be unethical. So if a mortgage lending institution tells their mortgage lenders, hey, if you can sell 100 more mortgages this year than last year, we will give you a trip to Hawaii. Well, it could push you to just make a few more phone calls every day and to follow up with people that had contacted you in the past and do a little more marketing. But it also could tempt you to unethically go to a bunch of people that cannot afford the mortgage and kind of, do a little bit of shady paperwork so that you can close those deals so that you can achieve your stretch goal. So you got to be careful with stretch goals, because sometimes it just encourages cheating. This happens in school all the time. A teacher, a well-meaning teacher, assigns a stretch goal assignment that is way bigger than a student can accomplish. So it puts students sometimes in a conundrum of thinking, well, if I work with someone else and we share answers, we can both get this done. And so you got to be careful with stretch goals, but they are important. This is something that you will hear over and over and over again. This is an awesome acronym. You'll see it in so many leadership books, management books. You'll use this over and over again. SMART goals. Specific. Basically, can you identify what the outcome is going to be? Measurable. Can it be measured? Is there a way to know if you're achieving that? Aligned. Is it linked to the strategy of what you're trying to accomplish? Reachable. It's challenging, so it might be a little stretching, but it's realistic. And time bound. The outcome has a deadline. So specific, measurable, aligned, reachable, time bound. These are SMART goals. This is a very important concept for you in your personal management, in business, in ministry, in life, in parenting. I mean, you name it, counseling. SMART goals are something that can be applied. And it's just a great little acronym to help you remember: specific, measurable, aligned, reachable, time. And you get that in your brain, it will help you be a better manager of yourself. Management by objective. This is basically managers, employees jointly determine work unit and individual goals, and those goals are in alignment with organizational goals. So, and I'll end with this. Sometimes a leader, a well-intentioned leader, sits in their office and they say, you know what, I've been working here a long time and I'm really smart. I think I know everything that we need to accomplish. And then they go to the staff and they say, here's what you're going to accomplish. Well, it is possible that that leader does know a lot more. A third grade teacher, hopefully, knows a lot more than their students. And so they're going to go and they're going to say, hey, I know what we need to learn in English. I know what we need to learn in math. Here's your assignments. But when you get out into the professional world or even the ministry world, now there's a lot less of a gap between the leader and the follower. And the follower, the person that's actually what I would call in the trenches, the person that's out there working every day, they might actually know, and they probably know more about what's going on in that area than the leader does. You know, it's impossible as a leader to be King Arthur, where you have to like be the best at everything. It's impossible. So you rely on people that are actually better than you at some things to help this team. And so management by objective, you bring the team in to help come up with some of those objectives. And what you end up having a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times you end up having a better, more well-rounded view of what needs to happen within, you know, your organization, what your goals need to be. So it's a really good, plus it's a sign of humility too when you get people involved. They call it the ivory tower mentality, where people believe that if they can sit up in the top of their, you know, their big office looking down at all those little minions and tell them what to do. That's a terrible way of looking at management, and it doesn't fit the servant leadership model. So anyway, okay, I think that's going to be it for today. Any questions, anybody? If you look at Canvas, I've been updating. I would like you to make sure you're still progressing through the videos, the quizzes, things like that. Just kind of keep that rolling. At the end of the semester, I will do a short book review on this book, which you all might have gotten, or 9 of you might have been sharing the same copy, whatever. I still would like you to read through it, but I'm going to go through it with you maybe in the last week of class. This is a very good little book, kind of help us kind of put a bookend on the whole semester. So I'll do this. I do want you to read through it, but there might not be a grade with that, which is the same as me saying, I know you're probably not going to read it, so that's okay. Or I might have you grade yourself on it. I don't know. Now that I think about, that might be something. I'm on to something. So anyway, and if it looks like Caleb is not at his grandma's kitchen table, it's because he's not. He's at my table here in my office. So he was bored, so he rode his bike. Did you ride your bike down here?
No.
Okay, all right. He didn't ride the bike today. So anyway, hey, I'll see you guys later this afternoon. Watch party. It's going to be great. There is a grade on that. So unless you just cannot make it, I'd like you to tune in. And for those of you who didn't hear me say it in the first class, hopefully it gets you out of 2 hours of chores. Okay. You can tell, hey mom, hey dad, the teacher said I really have to be in on this 2-hour call. I maybe need to take a nap before it. And then I'm going to have to kind of decompress after. So thank you and you're welcome. I'll see you guys later.
Hey, wait, Professor.
Yes.
What time does the watch party start?
I sent you an invitation. I think it's 2:30.
Okay.
All right. See you later. Bye, guys.